Like everyone should have case studies. Just take that, run, just go be successful. I think if you are not paying attention to the structured data on the public facing version of your website, you are behind the curve. It is an idiot savant. That's what I call AI, right? Where it knows all things, but it is an idiot when it comes down to it.
Here's an uncomfortable thought about your membership site. The most valuable thing you've built, the courses, the community, the stuff people actually pay for, is the exact part Google and AI can't see. And what they can't see, they can't recommend. I'm Vic. This is MemberFix Radio. And today's guest runs an agency that's driven north of $746 million in revenue for their clients. But that's not why I invited him. I wanted Phil on because he didn't come up through marketing. He came up through screenwriting. Writers' rooms for Disney+, Hulu, A24, a Robert Redford scholarship, the whole resume. His name's Phil Hudson, and he runs Rook Digital. Phil brings something to marketing most SEO people just don't have, the instincts of a storyteller. Whether that actually changes anything for your membership site is what I'm curious to find out today. In the next 40 minutes or so, we'll cover why your best content sitting behind a paywall creates a very specific SEO problem, and how membership sites can still earn trust and visibility even when their product is hidden. No keyword stuffing nostalgia, no algorithm voodoo. Let's get into it. Phil, welcome to MemberFix Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me, Vic. Good to see you again.
Likewise. So let's take a membership site owner who's been heads down running their business and has turned out most of the AI is changing search noise. If you had to explain the state of SEO in mid-2026 to that individual, what's the one shift they can't afford to ignore anymore?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think people need to understand that the fundamentals still apply. And I'm not talking about chasing the algorithm or trying to find the new hack or trick. I've never subscribed to that my whole career. And what that's allowed us to do is avoid penalties. So you don't get penalized, you don't get blacklisted, you don't get de-indexed, you don't have to deal with any of that stuff. If you just apply the fundamentals properly, like anything in life, you kind of future-proof yourself because you're leaning into the way things were built. And the new trend in AI optimization, AIO, GEO, AEO are kind of some of the terms we hear, is not a new trend. It's actually something I found in 2011, and it's structured data. It's schema markup. So if you can understand structured data, you are spoon feeding your best information to AI search and to search engines, which has always been the case. And you're doing it in a way that they cannot misunderstand you. So you need to get that on there. And honestly, you may not even be behind the curve. If you're listening to this now and you implement that, you'll probably be ahead of the curve. I think most people are still way behind on this. And it's something we've been doing for our clients to great success for many years. And we're seeing even greater success now as AI becomes more search similar. They kind of crawl things similarly, and they find this rich detail about who you are, what you do, why you're good, what you talk about in a way that they can't misunderstand, like I said. And you just rank way better. You get cited more, you show up more. And we've seen that time and time again with our clients.
Yes, and the key word I think you mentioned there is public-facing website. And obviously we deal a lot, both of us deal a lot with membership sites, a lot of things that are behind paywalls. How does AI and search treat those types of sites? And then if somebody has a membership or a community or what have you, and it's behind, it's protected content, how do you optimize for SEO? How do you get people to find you organically?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the fundamentals of SEO, like we've said. So obviously your kind of pay to play content, the content that you want people to pay for, the work you've done, training, tutorials, systems, sequences, any of that stuff that you want to protect should be behind a paywall. But how do you get people to your website? It's just that same age-old question we've always had. And it means you need to provide free, valuable content. You need to put information that is unique. You need to put information that answers a real question. And you need to identify what type of content best serves your user with where they're at in the sales funnel. So part of the conversation we always have with our clients is, your messaging needs to meet people where they're at. It's very hard to sell to a cold audience. And so you should not be trying to sell to a cold audience. You should identify in the funnel where we're at. And you can kind of break it into four really simple segments. And this is probably not new to most people, but you've got cold, warm, and hot. And kind of split warm into two segments. So cold traffic, these are people or cold audiences, they don't even know that they have a problem, let alone care what you sell. So it's an absolute mistake to sell to those people. So what you should be doing is making people problem aware with that content. And so ads and social media content works really well to kind of interrupt people and hit them with a problem. Hey, you're in pain. You may not have even realized you're in pain, which leads to the second segment when we move into warm. The moment they're aware of a problem or a pain point, you need to help them understand and build beliefs that there's a solution. We're still not selling you and you're still not selling yourself. You're providing a solution. You're educating to a solution. The next warmest segment, that bottom of the warm, this is now when they're looking for a provider of a solution, right? They're looking to find someone to apply this solution to get them out of pain. And then the final, the hottest, is overcoming objections. It's testimonials, it's case studies, it's all of the things that you need to have. So my recommendation is you need to have content that serves people at all levels. If you're answering questions, which is where GEO comes in, right? Where you're just kind of trying to get, AI to steal your content, your public facing content, to answer people and cite you, that type of question, if they're asking a question about it, it means they're warm. It means they understand. They're asking a question about a problem. And if you can explain, and this is just old sales psychology, right? And knowledge, if you can explain someone's problem in words and more clearly than they can, you are the expert, right? So they will trust you. And so I think one of the best things anyone can do, especially if you're in any type of membership site, is answer questions about who best fits your membership site. Answer questions about the problem that you're solving within that membership site. Serve people by giving that information away. And then you can always tie it back to your membership site where hopefully you're piquing their interest enough that they want to learn more about you as a provider of that solution. And the more helpful content you can put out, the more you can remarket to them through social media ads or Google remarketing, the more you can just show up and be top of mind when that person's ready to make a decision. You will be the natural best fit. That's where kind of the branding play comes into play. You're top of mind, they're ready. Who else are they going to go to other than the person who helped them? And that's just buyer psychology. So I think that's my best advice is really try to identify where people are, have content for all steps of the funnel. I would really lean into, on the SEO and AIO side of things, I would lean into answering questions that people have about the solution that they need, be less salesy, and you're going to see significant improvements in citations. You're going to see better traffic because people don't feel sold. And again, we're really thinking about AI as a filtering option. How do you get cited? How do you show up as one of the two recommendations so that they have one of two choices now, not 150 choices like we might have had in Google. So you just want to get through that filter. You're going to serve people, and you want to do it by providing as much indexed content that AI can steal from you. That's how you're going to build trust with AI, which is how you're going to break through that filter.
And my understanding, and I don't know the exact number, is that referrals from AI by citations for a problem aware lead, somebody who's in the buying mode, let's call it, the conversions are very high.
Oh, yeah. Yep. About 2 years ago, we started educating our clients, traditional SEO clients. Middle of funnel metrics are dying. And so when you go to Google Analytics, agencies in the past would report on, hey, we drove this much traffic. They spent this much time on your site. They went to this many pages. And we don't control conversions or ROI because we aren't your sales team. We're not your closers, et cetera. And now what we really care about are top of funnel metrics, which is how high on the first page you rank, how often you're being recommended and cited, which is data we can see through tools like SEMrush, which I'm sure we can talk about. So you can actually track top of funnel. How many at bats do you get to serve somebody? And then bottom, which is ROI and conversion metrics. And what we see is a direct correlation that absolutely that middle of funnel traffic, the traffic that's being cannibalized with no-click search, it's being cannibalized by AI. And then ultimately, when you are recommended, the innate trust in AI is so high that they just convert. So conversion rates are significantly higher with AI traffic than they are from traditional SEO traffic. So you just kind of have to stop worrying about the traffic piece and start thinking about yourself as an entity. And that's your social media accounts, it's your Wikipedia page, it's all of the things that represent you, that are you, that you can control. They all serve this funnel, and it's just top and bottom. Focus on those two things, and you will see increased conversion, most definitely.
Okay, so this is good news and bad news at the same time, I suppose. The bad news is that all of these auto SEO tools that are pumping on Instagram, which I'm guilty of trying, more so out of morbid curiosity than actually believing that it's going to work, are probably not going to get people the results that they want. You still need to put in a proper effort with SEO, which is also the good news, because that means the barrier to entry is relatively high. And if you think about it as a long-term investment in client acquisition, you'll probably have results forthcoming. And just to kind of encapsulate what you said, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Phil, that you've got your gated content that's behind a paywall, but then you also have content that isn't behind a paywall, that's specifically meant for the search engines, that's specifically meant for AI to index and cite. And what you want to do is you want to try to create content that's speaking to the folks who are basically ready to buy. And you probably also want to have educational content that is getting people from not being problem aware, like not knowing that they need the thing that you're selling, that they need your membership, to educating them and sort of moving them up to the funnel, to the top of the funnel, or I guess the bottom of the funnel, really.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. So you obviously have to protect your proprietary data and the things that make you unique, because AI is going to cannibalize that, and then anyone who can prompt properly will be able to get your system for free. And that's just a real problem we see with people who've put that stuff publicly or didn't have it behind a membership site, which I think speaks to some of the value of a membership site. Is
Mm.
if you have it behind a wall that's not indexable, AI can't steal it. Okay. But that means, like, as you started, they can't find that content. So definitely spot on. You want to have content that answers questions for people who are problem and solution aware. They're looking for a solution. Also answer questions for people who are looking for a solution to the problems. Like, hey, I'm struggling with this, right? Well, then you can answer a question about how people can resolve that. And there's ways that you think about listicles and some of the old Web 2.0 stuff we might have seen 10 years ago. Those are great assets that provide a ton of value. And you can always recommend yourself in those lists as well, as much as anybody else's or any other solutions that may not be direct competitors. One thing I want to point out too is top of funnel. It doesn't mean you can't reach cold traffic. I think it's just about, again, thinking about your entire entity. So if I go to Meta and I run ads where I have video content that's introducing a problem to someone, there are very sophisticated ways that you can just show an ad to someone. You have the pixel installed and you have the conversion API on Meta tied together. You can then remarket to them and trap them and then serve them more of this solution focused, more how to vet the right provider focused content, serve them articles from your website to bring them to your website. And now you're influencing behavior. And the more of that behavior you can influence, the better you're going to convert people, the cheaper it's going to be to convert people. So this all works in unison. It's not just about your website anymore. It's about how all of your advertising and marketing channels work together to drive a full funnel strategy. So you can do all. I just want to be very clear, but yeah, you nailed it. It should be, so you should be serving people. And there are some very specific, specific things you need to do with that content, which we can talk about to get through the AI filter, because there are these automated tools that people are selling you. And there's an algorithm happening right now that's wrecking people and will wreck people. You'll hear it within a week of us having this conversation. Like, you're going to see massive upset in the SEO world where people have just been letting AI optimize their stuff because there are metrics that Google wants to see that they're not doing. And that's going to be a problem.
Right. And historically, for people who aren't really familiar with SEO, that's always been the case, that Google is going to come in and wreck you. Well, even if you're doing everything right, they'll come in and wreck you every so often. But the good SEOs, they always adapt, and they continue doing really the fundamentals, as you said, great content, being referenced by other high authority websites, schema, so the technical SEO component. But it sounds like what you're saying, Phil, is that SEO is just one component of really a more holistic advertising strategy. And one of my principles that I kind of repeat with our team and in our company is that AI is a how, and you need a who to run the how, right? Who not how is a Dan Sullivan strategic coach concept, but essentially it's this idea that AI is this really, really uber intelligent, but also a highly idiotic entity that if you don't have the domain expertise, which AI indexes huge swaths of the internet and it kind of understands things semantically, but doesn't really understand things at the kind of nuance that a human does who's been doing something for a decade or 2 decades. It just doesn't. And it it outputs these plausible sounding things that when you evaluate it, you're like, this sounds like logical, but it's absolutely makes no sense. This is absolute, and so if you extrapolate that to like an SEO strategy and you don't know anything about SEO, it's going to just probably like wreck your site. You'll probably won't even get indexed, and you still need people who know what they're doing. Like, so that's still
Yeah.
a thing for now.
Yeah, there's a principle in AI called human in the loop, which I'm sure you're aware of, which is you need to have a human vetting and checking everything. And then you can get into like, long chain prompting, which are more advanced techniques in getting things out of AI. But to your point, you have to be an expert and know enough to be dangerous within a specific field to catch it in a hallucination. And there are ways, through some of the certifications I've done in AI, there are ways to prompt to catch it and to prevent hallucinations, but they still happen. And I think one of the most important things is you have to have a strong understanding of fundamentals, like we said. So for your audience, one of the biggest mistakes that I see all the time and that most people are probably making right now is they're not considering Google's guidelines surrounding EAT, which is an acronym. Are you familiar with that one? The double EAT. And for
Yes.
most people, most people are going to get this wrong. So there's always been expertise, authority, and trust. So any content that you put out needs to be expert, it needs to be authoritative, and it needs to have trust. And authority and trust have traditionally been built through link building or through citations and some of these other things. And your expertise is demonstrated by the way you write your content. And you think of it like a research paper, which we teach people all the time. And what they brought out to counteract AI is experience, which is what is your direct correlation and experience with this topic? And most people are not putting that into their content. They're having AI write this content. They're just dumping it in droves on their website. And that's going to get you in a lot of trouble because there's no humanity to it. And that's one of the core things in Google's webmaster guidelines that they look at is, do you have experience? Because AI cannot make that up. So that's a huge kind of red flag to Google that your content's been AI generated outside of semantics and the word choice and some of the other things that we see in contract.
Yes, that lands.
Yeah.
But it almost sounds like that you need to be believable and a believable source. Ray Dalio talks about this a lot. Is okay, if you ask somebody a question, or if you're trying to solve a problem, and you ask people to help you solve that problem or for their input, you're going to tend to ask people who are believable in that particular domain versus people who maybe will freely opine but really have no business doing so.
Yeah. I think it's about, you nailed it. Love Ray Dalio too. I mean, those principles are phenomenal, right? And they just kind of change the way you think about things.
Definitely. That's a great read. Ray Dalio's principles. Okay, so you mentioned, I'm going to go off script here a bit because you mentioned something super interesting, which is the idea that AI is just indexing things like a swarm of locusts, my words. And so what then, if people can just type something into AI and get what they think is a legit answer, which you and I we're working with AI daily, we're sort of power users. And I think we also can get into a bit of an echo chamber where we don't realize that the average person still has no idea about AI. They don't use AI. It's still pretty niche, globally speaking, right? But what is the value of a membership if you could just ask AI stuff? Why would anybody sign up to, a weight loss membership or a dating improvement membership if they can just chat with Claude or chat with ChatGPT? And
Yeah. I really like this. So one of the things that we recently did, so my friend Michael Jamin, who's a 30-year showrunner. He wrote for King of the Hill, and he wrote for Tacoma FD and Just Shoot Me and a bunch of other things. So just phenomenal writer. And he's got a membership site where he teaches screenwriting. And we did a test where I had him, in one of our free webinars we do every month, which is part of our sales process to get people to join his class and get behind the paywall and get access to his course. I gave him a script that I wrote and had him give me notes on the script. And one of the things that we have coming up now is we asked AI to write a script from a brand new, untainted account. Hey, give me a spec script, you King of the Hill, and then uploaded that script to another AI tool and said, give us notes, give us a script coverage on this. So the assumption here is that the AI, which is, knows everything, should be able to write a really good screenplay and should be able to know the difference between a good and a bad screenplay because it's indexed how many screenplays. And then what we find is anyone with any skill set in screenwriting can come in and be like, this is a trash script and it is worse than most new writers because it is just trying to mirror something. It's trying to match something. And so what we're doing on our next event is we will be having a professional showrunner give notes on an AI script that the other AI tool, by the way, said was a very good read, very high level, high marketability. And if you're new and you're in that Dunning-Kruger effect of thinking so much, you might buy into that and think, hey, this is a great script, I'm a good writer, whatever. And the reality is a professional look at it and be able to point out 1,000 things wrong with it. So I think what you have to do when you're marketing yourself as a membership site is I think you need to highlight the fact that, and I would hang a hat on it is another one of those writer's terms. When something's wrong, you put a hat on it and you call it out. And I would just use that. And I would say, hey, I'm an expert in my field. I want to see what ChatGPT would say about this. And here's the prompt I used. And here's the result I got. And here's why this is wrong in 15 different ways. And that would be a big push for the advertising I would do just to get out there and really disrupt the marketplace who thinks AI can teach me everything when we know, as you pointed out, it can, if you know already. It just becomes a tool to expedite things. But if you don't, you're going to stumble and fail and struggle. It'll probably be faster, but do you have the tenacity to keep pushing through and testing and learning what's wrong as a learning tool, not necessarily as a get it done for me tool? So that would be my advice, is just really lean in and highlight how wrong it can be to prove the point. You still need a human in the loop who has the expertise, who can teach it properly.
Yeah, 100%. I was just joking with my producer yesterday, the producer of our podcast, that AI is like the ultimate gaslighter, and it's almost like speaking with some kind of malignant narcissist or some kind of super manipulative sociopathic type of person, because it's like everything they respond sounds plausible, but it somehow doesn't feel right. It feels a little bit off. And you mentioned something super interesting, so I'm going to go off script again, and my producer's going to metaphorically de-index me. But you mentioned a free webinar, a monthly free webinar, as a sort of part of your sales process. Is that something you do for your agency, or is that something you do for your clients? I'd love to hear more about that. I think our audience would too.
Yeah, so we tested it. So we've done it for a lot of membership sites. I think it still works very well. Thinking through a traditional funnel sales process. How do I get people free valuable content, and how do I get them to engage with me in order to convert? And I don't know if this applies to everybody, but the trend seems to hold true that if you can get someone to spend 3 hours of time with you, you become an expert in their mind. That seems to be true for anyone I've done this process with. And what we find is that typically you're going to hook someone with short form content. That's how they get to know you. Then they're going to go look at long form content that you have free online in order to vet you and verify that they like you. No like and trust use, some terminology we've seen. And free webinars are a great way to do that. It could also be being on Facebook Live or Instagram Live or TikTok Live as well, just fielding questions. So I call it office hours, which is something that I want to do more of, where I'm here, ask me any question. It's just a radio phone line. Call in, ask me your questions. It's Love Line with Dr. Drew. Call
Mm-hmm.
in, ask me your questions, and I'll answer, get expert advice. So that's kind of the thought process that I would be considering for anybody who's trying to do this. So we tested this in our agency, and it works really well for Michael's site. We do this monthly, and we run ads to get people to join a free event. Then we use email sequences and automations to stay top of mind, SMS messaging to get them to show up. And we have decent show rates. They're not great, but they're better than most. And then we close a very specific percentage of that. And we've done enough of them to know 8 to 10% of people who show up to that free event are going to sign up for a $777 product at the end of that. And that's monthly. So
So you know
it's a
your
numbers game.
ROAS, and
Yeah.
you're able to know how much to spend to acquire, how much
Mhm.
you're able to spend on advertising to acquire a customer.
Yeah. And we can get into how I used AI to kind of revamp some of that process as well last year to incredible profitability. But it started with having the data in the beginning. So I know this is the topic we talked about. This is how many people I had registered. This is my average cost per registration. Here's how many people attended. Here's my purchase rate. Here's how many people bought the order bump. Here's how many people, I tracked all that data. And then I was able to run that through Gemini in order to get it to analyze and identify what are the problems we're having. But all of that kind of led to, how does this work for ourselves? And so we tried it for Rook, and we did it for a run of 3 months. And then one of the things I find consistently with digital marketing is we are such a tainted industry that people just don't trust us. Right. And so even though we're good and our clients will tell you you're good and our churn rate's super low, and we follow a Hippocratic oath of first do no harm with our clients, there's so many bad actors out there, what we call snake oil salesmen and charlatans, that we get people to register, show rates are next to nothing. Then we get people to watch the reviews. It's been profitable. We're still making money by doing it, but it got to the point where, we get 130 people to register and get 5 people to show up. And I just had to look at it and say, hey, this is not a good fit for our business. It's not a good use of resources when I could just go sit on a live and get the same amount of people just organically coming through the algorithm on TikTok or Instagram or some unified omni-channel tool like Riverside or something like that.
Hmm.
So one thing I wanted to point out too, and I know I apologize if that's a little rambly, right? So there's very clearly get your data, track your data, and then you upload that to an AI tool. We use Gemini because it's part of our workspace and it's private, so it's not going to train the algorithm with our
Right.
data. So we upload it there. And then we're able to run a bunch of these very specific prompts and tools because we're experts in marketing and sales and funnels to say, hey, here's what's going on. And I think, Vic, the most important thing you can ask in any chat session you have when you're working on any new project is what are the unknown unknowns? Because we're all very good at the known unknowns, but we cannot conceptualize unknown unknowns, right? I can't even conceptualize what I don't even know I don't know, but AI does. And when you're in a very specific prompt, it will tell you all the things you're not considering. And that has been one of the most valuable things I've implemented myself in my agency and for my clients to get better outputs from AI, get out of my own thinking, and then learn and start conceptualizing that. And that's where we really found that kind of small, short form content to longer format content really seems to be the buying behavior. And that was a big revamp we did for Michael's site and some other clients to really build engagement and drive better conversion.
And my inference there, Phil, is that building an audience is even more, I mean, it was always critical, but it seems even more critical now because if you have so many people competing for attention and you have all of these tools that enable that competition at a higher level, it reduces the barrier to entry to bombard people with these things. The barrier for knowing, liking, and trusting somebody actually goes up. So if you can establish rapport and you have people that are on your list or follow you on LinkedIn or on Instagram, and you're always there giving value, being top of mind. And I think I've even seen Hormozy say this in response to a question, which is like, why should I do all this content when most of those people, most of that content is just going to like disappear and stop getting views? He said, you're not making content just to make content. You're making it to build an audience. It's the audience that is the valuable part. That's the asset. Does that
Yeah.
reckon with your experience with what you're doing?
Absolutely. So we had one client, I had to take a sabbatical from work for some illness stuff going on, which you know about. And so I was gone for about a year. And I had a client who kind of went AWOL and they felt like, well, I gave away all this free content and they didn't buy the thing I wanted them to buy. And so screw them. I'm going to make them pay for everything now. And so they started charging like $7 here, $19 here for what was free. And then what happened to the sales? They just dropped. They just right off a cliff. And it was, an ego play because they were offended that they didn't buy the thing that they wanted to sell. And it's just good old capitalism, right? The market dictates what it wants. And I had to just, when I came back, I had to point out, well, you're mad they didn't buy the thing you wanted to sell them, that you worked hard and you put your soul into, but you've got hundreds of thousands of these little green votes that come in paper with old dudes' faces on them that say they like these other things. And so they actually were paying you for those things. But you had to just kind of take detach and take a step back and look through that lens. So I absolutely agree with that. I think the other thing people need to understand is that the fundamentals of SEO apply to social media. And a year or 2 years ago, Instagram and TikTok both came out and said, we are SEO platforms. And so you should be applying the same, what we call SEO social. It's a really bad acronym or melding or concatenation, but SEO is your title of your video, the description, the caption, the text overlays, the words you're saying in your transcript. That's all indexable content that the algorithms for these platforms are using to serve your content. It's also what Google's looking at to serve your content. It's what AI is looking at to serve your content. And it will recommend a video just as fast as
Mm-hmm.
it'll recommend your website. So that's where we really have to detach and start thinking about things as an entity. One of the things we talk with our clients about is Google's machine reference entity ID for every single person on the planet and everything on the planet. And there's an ID attached to you and me and everybody else. And you need to unify these things. And that's where schema comes into play, where you can say, we are the same as Instagram, the same as this TikTok account, the same as. That's all part of this process for this holistic way where your audience doesn't just live on your website anymore. It lives on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, in your newsletter and LinkedIn. It's also on Reddit, and it's also in Google. And you have to think about it outside of your website in a way we didn't think about that even 3 or 4 years ago.
It's funny, as you were describing that, a great example of that came to mind where I followed this guy on Instagram who's he's an SEO, AI SEO guy, like an entrepreneur. And I'm on Instagram for maybe 20 minutes or something. And I see, as I'm scrolling through, I see maybe 4 or 5 of this guy's posts. Like he's just being uber recommended by Instagram. And as I watch his content, I kind of understand why. I sort of intuitively understand he's doing the right kind of thing because it's short, it's punchy, it's engaging, it's a little bit provocative, is making sure all the fundamental technical things that drive that kind of engagement are solid. Then you only need to get it to work for a short while to get some pretty crazy ROI, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would care a lot less about going viral. And I think, my friend Rico Incarnati is like pretty big in the Instagram space and the social media space. I know him from years back when he was first cutting his teeth as a videographer for an influencer in Austin, Texas. And to watch his channel explode, it all comes back to he practices what he preaches. And one of the things he always talks about is stop talking to guys and hey, everybody. You're talking to one person staring at their phone. So make it unique, make it individual, focus on connecting with one person. That alone will make the hook stronger. They're going to spend more time, and then the algorithm will continue to feed that person's content into you. So it's really about winning the hearts and minds of individuals, not large groups of people. And again, if we see a significant increase in conversion rate, if you can be recommended by the AI several times to somebody, I mean, how many people do you truly need to break through to be financially successful? And I always go back to 1,000 true fans, right? That, yeah, amazing study by Kevin Kelly, right? That article. You need 1,000 true fans to pay $100 a year, and you have $100,000 a year in income, right? That's a way more achievable now. So stop focusing on the millions and start thinking about the individuals. Those individuals will start stacking up pretty quick.
For sure. I think it should be updated for inflation to maybe 2,000 true fans, but
Sure,
I think
yeah,
that
probably.
logic still holds, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get a little tactical because membership sites can get messy, and your team is also technical, and we collaborate and have a partnership going that's been great. We work with membership plugins, LMS plugins, page builders, hosting, checkout flows, all that good stuff, mostly on WordPress. And when I open a site like that, when my team looks at a site like that, we're generally looking at the technical setup, the plumbing, so to speak. What's going to break? What are the performance bottlenecks, etc. But that's obviously only half the picture, and it's more so the area that we're comfortable in. When you look at a site, and we do have some mutual clients, right? What are you seeing and what are you looking for that I'm not really thinking to check vis-a-vis SEO, AI visibility, marketing in general?
Yeah. One of the first things we do is we just do, we used to do free audits for everybody. And there's a world where we could still do that. Like if you wanted to, if you have anybody who's looking, we could still do it. We're currently charging for them because people just do not value that level of information where we're going to go crawl your website. And I'll kind of go through what we're looking at as part of this audit process. But we're doing some really complex auditing that we used to charge $1,400 per audit for. And people just weren't appreciating it. So what makes something worth $1,400, which we charge 97 now? It's not even that. We use the third-party proprietary tools. They're not ours, but they're owned by other people. And what that allows us to do is we can load in a website and we can crawl hundreds of factors. We're looking at meta titles, meta descriptions. We're looking at H1 tags, H2 tags. We're looking at word count. We're looking at reading level. How
Mm,
difficult is it to read the content on the page, which we'll get back to. We're looking at how flat the site is, how the internal linking structure works. We're looking at whether or not they have schema. Do they have canonical URLs set up, which is something you have to understand from 2013 that most people still don't even understand, but will absolutely wreck your site if you don't have them set up properly. And great tools like WordPress come with those things almost automatically installed now, thankfully. But we're looking at a bunch of those factors. The stuff you do on the plumbing side, as you talk about, is so vital to SEO. It can't be understated. Like site speed, bandwidth, all of those things that you're so good and your team's so good at about like locking in and really making sure are tight are SEO factors. That's still technical SEO stuff that most people get wrong. The caching alone, right? Making sure that stuff's super tight. So outside of that, like I said, it's really looking at those factors and schema. What level of schema? You can go a mile wide or you can go a mile deep with schema. And the people who are going to succeed are going to go a mile deep on every single post type in WordPress or on their site. They're going to look at all of the things available to them for that post type and they're going to use them correctly. So we're looking at all of those things as well as looking at, what keywords are they currently ranking on? Should that page be optimized for that keyword phrase or is there a better keyword phrase? There's something we call bone setting where you can have to break things to set them properly for the long-term success of a business, where we might have someone take 3 steps backwards because they had someone optimize the wrong page for something, or Google didn't they optimized 2 pages for the same keyword and one of them is just dead weight now and the wrong page got optimized or ranked. So we're looking at all of those factors to determine what we should be doing. I think the readability is one of those really important ones. You should be looking at whether or not your content looks like it has an AI, footprint. And there are a bunch of
mm,
tools like Grammarly and other free tools you can load your text in and it'll tell you. But beyond that, it's just how difficult it is. If it's too easy and if it's too hard, it's problematic. And so you want to be somewhere around an 8th grade reading level. And it ends up being what's called a 60 to kind of an 80 on the Flesh reading score, which you can learn more about. You can just do a quick, AI chat with that to learn more about that. But those scores really kind of impact usability, time on site, and Google's pretty aware of that. And I say Google, from an SEO perspective, but Gemini and ChatGPT and all the others as well.
Okay, so that's basically the growth plan your team puts together, right? The one that's normally a paid thing, 97.
Yeah. Yep. But, Vic, you're a great partner for us. And if you've got someone here on your audience that wants it, we can get you a coupon code and we'll still do one for free for your people. But publicly, you go to our website, you'd have to pay $97 for that, right?
Very generous of you, Phil. Thank you. I appreciate that. And if you want Rook Digital to map this out for your site, your SEO, your ads, your marketing strategy, where the opportunities are, what's slowing you down, the link's in the description. So go ahead and follow that, and Phil and his team will take care of you. Okay, back to it because I want to get into some of the practical items that actually move the needle. So, keywords have always been a thing, and I know that keyword research is one of your core strengths. And I want to be precise here because keywords mean a couple different things now. There's keyword research as intelligence, right? Figuring out what your buyers actually type, what they're actually after. And then there's the old keyword stuffing connotation. So, starting with the first one, How should a membership site operator think about finding the right keywords differently from, say, a local coffee shop?
Yeah. So there was a principle that came out 2012 with the Google Panda update, and it was called latent semantics. And latent semantics, so Google Panda, Google Penguin, Hummingbird, Pigeon, ThinkBrain, Possum, all of these algorithms are part of the core algorithm now, and they all have different things they do. But Panda and Penguin were the kind of the two beasts of 2012 and 13 that really wrecked half of the internet. And latent semantics is just understanding synonyms and plurals and uh, you know industry terms. And so your industry has a unique set of keyword phrases, has a unique set of terms that people use to speak about what you do in your industry. Right. And so you have to understand your industry well enough, going back to this kind of expert prompting world. You have to understand your industry well enough to understand the words that people are using to describe what you do. But then beyond that, we just use actual data from Google to find out what people are looking
Mm,
for. And that is just available through tools like SEMrush. So SEMrush is one of our primary tools we use for keyword research, where we can go type in any keyword phrase we want, and it will tell us search volume, average monthly search volume over the last 12 months. It will tell us how competitive that keyword phrase is, the average cost per click in Google Ads. And that's going to tell you kind of a holistic story about that keyword phrase. The most important thing is you can't be greedy about it. You have to understand, does this keyword actually, like, what is the intention of the person searching for this in Google or AI? And to believe that they're different, I don't think you can. I think we might chat in a more natural language pattern, but the keywords are still going to be the drivers here. To
mm,
think that someone's going to search for something in AI differently than they would in Google, I don't think that that makes a lot of sense. I think that the reality is the underlying intention is still there. And if you if you can get this exact list, like I was just doing keyword research for my brother who's an attorney in Montana today, sometimes you think, well, I'm an attorney. I don't want to use the term lawyer, but you might find out that, DUI lawyer in Montana has 16,000 searches per month, whereas DUI attorney or lawyer, whatever, vice versa, has 5,000. And we see that
mm.
all the time where even just one letter can change the way you do this. So I wouldn't guess at it. And one of the mistakes that I've had to catch my own team on is they will just ask ChatGPT, what are the top search for phrases? Well, by what standard? Like, how do we know? And very often when we take the recommendations we get and we load it into a tool like SEMrush, they're not the most searched for phrases.
Mm,
They're looking at things like Quora, where they're looking for Reddit topics, or Answer the Public is another great place to go to when you're thinking about articles to write because they're real questions people are asking. But to get that kind of line by line detail you want a professional tool like SEMrush. And this used to be free in Google Ads and they kind of killed that, but they exist. Search Atlas, I think, has it. Ahrefs might have a keyword research tool attached to it as well, but they're typically industry specific tools that do that. And if you do an audit
right.
with us, by the way, I should point out, we have no problem looking these up. We also have no problem looking at what you rank on, and we also look at your competitors, which is also fun because you can see some very clear discrepancies to why your knuckleheaded competitor, who you think you're better at and probably are, is outranking you. It's just they have better SEO. That's all it is. It's not because they're
Mm.
better.
It's those A players working for those C players phenomenon
Yeah, exactly.
writ large. Okay, so the discovery side is still super important, and it sounds like you can't just plug it into ChatGPT, which is really what we've been saying all along. Is like it's ChatGPT is an idiot savant, sometimes more idiot than savant, really. And your position has been that keyword stuffing is dead. I mean, it's been dead for a long time.
So keyword stuffing is a very specific thing to anyone who's like, and this is inside baseball. So someone on my side of the table, keyword stuffing is just shoving the same keyword throughout your site over and over again. It's putting it just kind of everywhere without any real plan. That's different than keyword density. So keyword density is leveraging what we understand to be part of the algorithm of Google, which is you need to mention that keyword certain number of times in
Hmm.
specific places. And so keyword stuffing, I would never do. It's been dead for forever, and you will get penalized for that. But keyword density is super important. And I've never seen a case where if you don't play aggressive, but within the safe range of percentage of times you use a keyword on a page, which is 2%, by the way, not
Hmm.
times 10 keywords, but 2% for whatever main keyword phrase you're going for, put it in the title, put it in the description, put it in H1 tag, put it in an H2 tag, and then make sure that the body, the rest of the content's about 2%. You're going to rank better. You just will. That's just how it works. But then you also have to have all the other nuances of SEO behind it. So it's not that alone. You got to do all the other stuff.
So it sounds like a lot of SEO and I mean, marketing in general really is just about adaptability. You're still playing the same game. It's the goal is really just still to win. And everybody knows what that looks like pretty much. But the rules are constantly changing, and they're the techniques that allow you to succeed are constantly changing. You mentioned authority and trust, expertise, experience, and like for a membership type business, right? For one of these types of sites, what is proving your authority, expertise, trust, etc. actually look like? It sounds like it's a series of technical steps essentially that you have to follow.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. I don't know that I subscribe to the SEO is always changing mindset. I think a lot of people are chase the algorithm. Things change for sure, but there are things that have not changed in my entire career. And those are the fundamentals
Link.
of on-page SEO. Backlinks are very easily gamed and constantly being wrecked and changed in what they promote and what they don't promote. So yeah, I think that's a great example of what I would call chasing the algorithm. But
Mm,
fundamentals of on-page SEO, I don't think they've really changed. And in fact, if we have never changed that process and we've never been penalized. The people we do that for always rank better when the penalties come because they're just chopping off people who are gaming the system, and the
mm.
long-term people who've done the fundamentals right keep going on. So I just wanted to point that out. But go ahead. Did you have a follow-up question?
Well, it's basically, yeah. How do you prove to without being
The
penalized
authority.
the EEAT?
Yeah. There's kind of two kind of subtopics of authority we talked about. So we used to talk about general authority in terms of like PageRank, right? So Google PageRank was an algorithm. It's still part of the core algorithm. You can go to Wikipedia and look up PageRank, PageRank, one word, and you can see that this exists. And it was basically just a score of 0 to 10 for every page of your website. And it's up to 6 decimal points. And it's a, force multiplier, and geometrically, one's 10 times more authoritative than a 0 and a two's 100. And that's still play. It's still a play, very much at play, but it's not the end all anymore. And topical and niche authority are two of the things we talk about, especially for AI, which means the type of content you write about and how you write about it have to be there. So that's having things like answering people's questions and then going a mile deep on that topic in a series of articles that also have frequently asked questions embedded into those with schema, right? So there's structured data for FAQs, there's structured data for video content, there's structured data for quotes. So the more of that schema you can leverage to build a trust and authority around, this is a properly SEO optimized article on the topic of how to grow a membership site, just as an example. And then within that, you have an embedded video that answers that question that's hosted on your YouTube channel, which is owned by Google, which is the second largest search engine. That's embedded in there. And then you have frequently asked questions, 3 to 5 of those at the bottom that are frequently asked questions about that topic, more niche than that topic. You're just going to rank better. You just will, because you have so much innate trust. And then it goes back to, again, what's your unique perspective on this? What is unique? What is original about this? It might be better than
Mm.
unique. What is original? Not something that you're ripping off, which again, AI can't do. And then secondarily, are you appealing to authority by citing other people? Are you citing experts in the field, which you can use schema and structured data to do? And then beyond that, it's your experience. Like, so an example is one of our membership sites was struggling to grow with XYZ, and we recommended ABC, and now they got EFG. That's
Mm.
cannot be made up. So
Before and
it's
after.
yeah, it's all of those things. Case studies, boom, hugely important case studies. Like everyone should have case studies. Just take that, run, just go be successful. Like the case studies alone are the big linchpin here for expertise.
Absolutely agree. We've made case studies a KPI in our company for the role for 2 roles that are responsible for delivering them. And even, a case study doesn't even have to be this big, huge deal. It could be just a very simple, small problem that's super annoying that you helped your client or your member to solve. And the benefit of that approach is that you don't have to have this monolithic case study where completely overhauled somebody's life, or you took them from A all the way to Z, but you just say, hey, we took this person from F to G. Here's the problem. Here's the solution briefly, and then here's the result before and after. It's like if you took someone from being terrified of talking to women to being able to like approach a woman, he still can't get any dates. That's still huge progress.
He can approach, right? He can make an approach at a bar
You can make an
and
approach.
without vomiting, right? That's a huge win. And for many men, right? For many men, that's a big issue. And it goes back to like weight loss. My first really successful e-commerce website was a weight loss supplement site.
Mm.
Before and after photos always convert better. Always, right? Here's what they look like before. Here's what they look like after. That's just a visual case study. Number of pounds lost. Like it's 100% we're aligned on this. It could be really simple stuff.
I mean, that would be just an epic case study from literal vomiting to word vomiting.
Yeah,
Still
there
progress.
you go. I love it.
Okay. So kind of on the same topic about getting wrecked by Google, which has happened to me multiple times. SEO is a long game, I think. And I bet that's probably one of the main sort of conversations you have in your sales process, where people understandably, naturally, they want more or less quick results, but that's not really the game with SEO. You're looking at like a year plus to see results. Is that typical, would you say?
Yeah, it really just depends on the market. It depends on how competitive the keywords are. It depends whether you're national or whether you're local. And a local dentist and I'm using, local clients here, not membership, but a local dentist in Tucson, Arizona versus a local dentist in Phoenix, Arizona. They're very different markets, right? Versus Casa Grande, Arizona. Like they're three different markets with different levels of competition, different number of dentists, different levels of sophistication within those marketing groups. So it really just truly depends. But what we typically do is we do a 12-month agreement with people, and then we front load the crap out of that contract. We are not profitable for the first 4 or 5 months. And we do that strategically because we know we got about 90 days to prove to a client that they're going to be successful. And we know they're going to be successful. We've done it so many times, but it's hard to have faith in something when you're spending, X number of dollars every single month and not seeing a return. So the faster we can show results, faster we can show better rankings, more traffic to the degree that we can, and more leads or more closed deals, the better. So we front load our contracts very strategically for that exact reason, because it is a long-term strategy. It is not a short-term strategy. It can be with AI if you get indexed pretty quickly and get your content in there, but you have to have been around for a while to have that level of trust with these tools. It's not something I can stand up today and be quoted tomorrow. It would still be a month or so before.
Okay, makes sense. You try to get those quick wins and it sounds like almost like, the first 2 quarters is you're putting your client's marketing on Reddit True Tide, so to speak. You want those quick wins, right? But of course, that's not all there is to it. There's eating well, there's, sleeping well, all that good stuff. And you even wrote an article on your site about whether using AI in marketing puts customers at risk, kind of coming full circle on a holistic strategy that isn't just trying to game and chase an algorithm. For the kinds of mutual clients that we work with who are, let's say, leaning on AI to write their blog posts, their descriptions, their course description, even maybe some of their community content, what are they risking by leaning so heavily on AI?
Yeah, I think first you need to understand the legal implications for your industry. This is one of those things that we see very often where it will hallucinate a law or it'll cite something that doesn't exist. And when we do privacy policies in terms of service, as an example for our clients, there is a massive disclaimer at the top of that thing that the client has to delete themselves that says that they have had that vetted by an attorney. So if you have any type of restrictions, like health and wellness definitely comes to mind. Legal definitely comes to mind as well. Anything that's claim phobic, if you will, or afraid of making any types of claims like best or anything, you definitely want to have some legal eyes on anything you're putting out there. I think the other thing is you're putting yourself at tremendous risk by, and here's a really good example. We had a Black Friday sale. We're trying to like juice this bundle for Black Friday for this membership site that I'm a co-owner on. And we loaded up a bunch of these products and we just basically took these 20-minute clips I took the transcript, I uploaded it to ChatGPT. I had it read the transcript. I had it give me the learning objectives and the course overview and everything. And then we sold it, great discount. Nobody complained at the price in the bundle. And then we bumped the price back up to full price just to price anchor it and say, hey, this is a $97 course now. We had someone buy it for $97 and they came back and they said, surely I didn't spend $97 on a 20-minute course. And we said, yeah, that's what it is. No refunds or whatever. And so they went to PayPal and they filed a chargeback and they downloaded the transcript, matched it to our learning objectives, and they did not match. So what we had promised was not true, even though it had the transcript. A human could see the clear difference. And because of the timeline, I didn't vet it. So you're risking that just from offending clients, losing customers, losing goodwill and faith with customers, making promises that are untrue. You truly have to have human in the loop at all aspects where you read it. Just use it as a tool to expedite things, not to do things for you at this stage, is what I would say.
Yes, makes sense. And it tallies with my experience in that even before AI was a big thing, really the main thing that got people to stick around once they subscribed to some kind of membership was one of two kind of main things: either a community that kept people engaged. Static content, even before AI, was already just par for the course. And most people actually, if you track it, if you have some kind of activity logging tool on the site, most people who pay for a membership don't consume almost any of the content. Like a staggering amount of people pay for a membership month after month after month, or quarter or year after year, and consume very little of this static content. But what they actually wind up staying for is a community and or a group coaching element, which essentially is just access to the person, right? The personality or the founder. And now with AI commoditizing like general content even more, I think that actually increases the value of those human connections, those human touches, and presumably could even drive retention in a sense.
Yeah. It goes back to, on the film side, pretty polished videos do not perform as well as human videos. And because of the uncanny valley, where you can no longer tell the selfie video with the messy hair or the person running around in the background or my kids stomping around upstairs, the imperfection is what makes it human, and people resonate so much more with that. So I 100% agree with you on this.
Totally. And it was known a long time ago that ugly converts,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, totally. Totally. And
Yeah.
it's so hard to get people to believe that. It's so hard. I mean, we had a client where they didn't want to put green for their pricing colors. And I've never seen a case where making your pricing colors green and your sales price red with a strike through does not convert better. And
Right.
it's plausible that it wouldn't work, right? We say, I don't know, test it, even in a place where we know a best practice has never failed. And they were adamant that they didn't want it. So we just tested A/B test, black and red, red and green. Green was a 38% increase in conversion rate. But it didn't match their brand, and good for them for agreeing and trusting us to do the test, and they stuck with the result. But yeah, it's a hard pill for people to swallow.
They're like, we agree with this as long as it works, right?
Yeah, 100%. I would rather be rich, not right. That's the end of it.
Totally. And it's right. It's like SEO is like, it's praxeology, right? It's not philosophy. It's not about being right, or like business in general, right? It's not about being right. It's about being effective and doing what works. Now, to close things out, as our final question here, you've built Rook on what you call anti-charlatan marketing, which I love that. I love the idea that, you call a spade a spade. I think there's a lot of, it's good to be emotionally intelligent. It's good to read the room and so forth, but you also have to kind of be a little bit provocative and say, hey, you know what? Most of the people who are trying to sell you what we sell are going to take your money and not get you the results that you want. And that's the reality of the industry. Let me explain why we're different. Let me show and prove why we're different. And the ways that you achieve that, some of the ways you achieve that are transparency, education, and for example, if a membership founder, right, if they close this episode out and can only do one thing this week, what's a practical thing that might work for them? What would you actually want them to do other than go and do an audit?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm shocked how many people don't have Google Analytics installed on their website. I'm shocked how many people do not have Search Console. registered. I'm shocked by the number of people who don't have free tools like Microsoft Clarity on their site, which you kind of talked about with, which is free heat mapping software that will record interactions with your website. Like those are just free wins to get the data and understand everything. So I would absolutely do those things. Man, from what's something that's really practical that they could do today or this week from an SEO perspective or a broader marketing perspective. There's a tool called the schema validator. You can just Google that schema validator and you should plug your website in there and it will tell you what kind of schema you have. And you should try your homepage, your product page, category page if you have more than one product. You should load those all in there. And then I would take your top 3 competitors and just compare them. What do they have that you don't have? You might find they don't have anything. And the good news is if you put schema on your website, you're going to blow them out of the water in like a week and a half. It's so powerful. You might find that they have schema that you don't, and you can just go steal their schema and make it your own. And now it's an even playing field. And that's super easy to do. And there are, I mean, Gemini, Claude, they're very good at writing code. And you can just say, hey, I'm generating schema markup for a membership website. Here's all the details. Here's what my competitor has. I need to apply this to my business. What do you need to know for me to do that? Boom. It's going to tell you exactly what to do. It's going to spit it out. You can just load it on your site. It's going to move really quick for you.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, Phil, this was a genuinely useful walkthrough where SEO is heading and where AI is heading and what membership operators need to do about it. For everyone listening, if you want a no BS audit of your site and your SEO by Phil and his team, reach out to Rook Digital using the link in the description for your personalized growth plan. I'm Vic. This is MemberFix Radio. New episodes come out regularly with people running real membership businesses and people active in our industry, helping you grow your membership and subscription-based business. Subscribe to catch the next one.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it was great.